I had just come back from a funeral, my heart still pounding my hands, not quite steady. I stood outside the front door, ready to walk in and tell my son and daughter-in-law the impossible truth that a man I hadn't seen in over 20 years had left me everything: 3 farms and a house by the sea. But before I could knock, I heard their voices through the door. They weren't talking about me coming home. They were calmly deciding what to do with me next. And the moment I understood their plan, the blood in my veins turned to ice. Hello everyone, I'm truly grateful you're here today. Before we go any further, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. And I want to ask you something honestly: if you were standing outside that door, hearing your family plan, your future, would you walk in or stay silent? Just a quick note before we continue: this story includes some fictional elements added for narrative and educational purposes. Any similarities to real names or situations are unintentional, but the message you're about to hear is completely real. My name is Walter Byrne. I'm 70 years old, and my hands were aching. I gripped the plastic steering wheel of my 2004 pickup truck so hard my knuckles had turned white. I'd been driving for 10 hours straight. 10 hours on the interstate, fueled by bitter gas station coffee and the stale, lingering scent of funeral home lilies that seemed stuck in my jacket. I was coming back from Wyoming, a place I hadn't seen in 2 decades. I was coming back from burying my father, Hector. Hector and we weren't close. He was a hard man, a man of few words, and most of them were sharp. He was a miner, a man who believed emotion was a weakness, and that a son's job was to listen, not to speak. When I married my Isla, he didn't approve. When I decided to work at the auto plant in Ohio instead of the mines, he called me soft. We hadn't spoken in years. When his lawyer called me, I almost didn't go. But Isla, God rest her soul, she always believed in forgiveness. Go, Walter. I could almost hear her whisper. He's still your father. So I went. I sat in the back of a cold, empty chapel. I listened to a preacher who clearly didn't know him talk about a man I didn't recognize. I was the only family there. Afterward, the lawyer, a young man named Harrison, pulled me aside. He handed me a thick envelope. I expected a bill for the funeral, maybe a final letter of disappointment. But it wasn't a bill. It was a will. I opened it right there in the parking lot, the Wyoming wind whipping my thin coat. I had to read it 3 times before the words made any sense. My father, my cold, silent father, hadn't left me debt. He hadn't left me an apology. He left me everything. He left me 3 farms, not little hobby farms, but sprawling tracts of land out in the high plains. And the lawyer Harrison had explained, his voice quiet. Mr. Byrne, these farms, they're currently leased for natural gas exploration. There's significant income. And that wasn't all. He left me a house I never knew he owned, a small place, the lawyer said, perched on a cliff in Maine overlooking the ocean. I clutched the envelope as I drove. The total value, Harrison had estimated it, $18 million. My mind couldn't hold the number. 18 million. For the last 8 months, my entire world had been worth nothing. When my Isla passed away from the pneumonia that took her in less than a week, my life ended. Our house had been in her name, a detail that never mattered when we were young and in love. But it mattered when she was gone. My son Ryan and his wife Jenna explained it to me gently, or maybe it wasn't gently. I can't remember. They explained that the house was now legally theirs, and they needed to sell it. They were struggling. So at 70 years old, I moved in with them. I wasn't a father anymore. I wasn't a husband. I was a tenant. I lived in their sunroom. It was a small room off the kitchen, all glass and wicker furniture, freezing in the winter and boiling in the summer. My bed was a pull-out sofa. My belongings were in 2 cardboard boxes tucked under the patio table they used for storage. I became a ghost in their home. I tried to stay small. I washed my own plate, folded my own blanket, but I knew I was a burden. I heard Jenna's sighs when I walked through the kitchen to use the bathroom. I saw Ryan wince when I asked if I could watch the evening news. They were good kids, I thought. They were just stressed. But now, holding this envelope, everything was going to change. My heart, which I thought had turned to stone, started to beat with a painful, unfamiliar hope. I wasn't a burden anymore. I wasn't a ghost. I could buy my own place. A small apartment, nothing fancy. I could have my own kitchen again, my own bed. And I could help them. I could help Ryan. I knew they were drowning in debt. I heard them whispering about the mortgage. This money. This miracle from a man I never understood. It wasn't just for me. It was for us. I pulled onto their street. Their modest suburban house looked exactly the same. The grass needed cutting. I parked my old truck at the curb, grabbed the envelope, and practically ran to the front door. I didn't even bother with my key. I knocked a huge, stupid grin on my face, ready to tell them, "It's okay. Everything is going to be okay." I was about to knock a second time when I heard Jenna's voice through the thin wood. It was sharp, annoyed. "Ryan, I'm telling you I can't take it anymore." I froze. My hand hovered over the door. "He just wanders around the house like a ghost," she said. Her voice was clear. "He's always there." "Jenna," Ryan's voice was tired. "He's my dad. He's grieving." "We're all grieving," she snapped. "But we have our own lives. His 71st birthday is next month. We'll tell him then. We have to." "Tell him what?" Ryan asked, but he sounded like he already knew. "That we found him a place. That Golden Meadows has an opening. It's clean. It's safe." I felt the blood drain from my face. Golden Meadows. I knew that name. It wasn't a nice assisted living facility. It was the state-run nursing home. The place you went when you had no money and no one. The place people went to die. "Jenna, that's..." Ryan stammered. That's a home." "It's what we can afford," she said. "He's a financial black hole, Ryan. He contributes nothing. He just sits in that sunroom costing us money we don't have. It's him or us. And I'm choosing us." My hand fell from the door. The envelope in my other hand suddenly felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. They were planning to throw me away. The man they thought was a broke, useless old burden. A cold, hard feeling settled in my chest, replacing the hope I'd felt just moments before. They wanted to see how much of a burden I was. I'd show them. My hand kept resting on my jacket pocket. The cheap fabric was warm from my body heat, but the paper inside felt foreign. It felt heavy, heavier than just paper. It felt like a brick. I kept replaying the scene that had happened just an hour ago back in that dusty law office in Wyoming. Mr. Harrison. A young man looked like he was barely 30, sitting behind a desk that was probably older than both of us. He slid a thick envelope across the wood. "Mr. Byrne, I was your father's attorney for the last 5 years. He was specific. He left this for you." I expected a bill. I really did. I expected a bill for the cremation, or maybe a final angry letter, something to remind me one last time that I'd been a disappointment. I expected the deed to the half-acre burial plot I'd now have to pay taxes on. I hadn't opened it in the office. I just nodded, thanked the young man, and walked out into the biting wind. But I couldn't drive. I'd pulled the truck over onto the gravel shoulder of the highway, the engine idling, the endless prairie stretching out in front of me. My hands were shaking too hard. I ripped the envelope open. It wasn't a letter. It was a will. And it wasn't 1 page. It was 20. I read the first line. "I, Hector Byrne, leave all my worldly possessions to my only son, Walter Byrne." All his possessions. I almost laughed. That meant his rusty toolbox, his 10-year-old television show, and the rented trailer he died in. But I kept reading. My possessions, namely... My eyes scanned the legal jargon. 3 farms. Not 1. 3. I unfolded the plat map Harrison had included. Vast tracts of land. Acres and acres out in the high plains. I remembered that land vaguely. Hector used to drag me out there as a child trying to teach me about... I don't even know what. Rocks. Dirt. I hated it. It was just useless, empty prairie. But Harrison's voice echoed in my head. A quiet comment he'd made as I was leaving. Mr. Byrne, that land isn't just land. It's currently leased to a natural gas exploration company. The mineral rights alone, they are substantial. And that wasn't all. I turned the page. My property located at 14 Lighthouse Road, Cutler, Maine. A house. A house by the sea. I blinked. Hector hated the ocean. He told me once it was too much water all trying to kill you. I skipped past the rest, my fingers fumbling with the last page. It was an asset summary compiled by the lawyer's office. Total estimated value. My vision blurred. It looked like a typo. It had to be a typo. $18 million. 1. 8. Followed by 6 zeros. 18 million. I thought of the sunroom. I thought of Jenna's annoyed, quiet sighs when I got up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom, the floorboards creaking. I thought of Ryan, my son, my boy, nervously asking me last week if I could maybe chip in a little more for the electric bill, even though he knew my Social Security check was barely enough to cover my heart medication. This felt impossible. It felt like a prank, a cruel joke from beyond the grave. Hector was a miner. He lived in that rented trailer. He wore the same denim work shirts until the collars frayed to threads. Where did this come from? He must have saved every penny, invested it, lived like a pauper while sitting on a dragon's hoard of wealth. And he'd left it. To me. The thought that hit me next was so powerful I actually gasped, sucking in the cold, dry air of the truck cab. I wasn't a burden anymore. I wasn't the old man living on the pull-out sofa. I wasn't the ghost in their house apologizing for taking up space. I could buy my own place, a real house, or just a small apartment, anything. I could have my own kitchen. I could buy the brand of coffee I liked, not the cheap, instant kind Jenna bought. I could have a bed that didn't fold in half. And I could help them. I could help Ryan. I knew they were struggling. I knew the whispers I heard late at night weren't just arguments. They were panicked, terrified discussions about the mortgage, about credit cards. This miracle. This impossible, ridiculous gift from a man I never understood. It wasn't just for me. It was for us. It was the solution. I put the truck back in gear and pulled onto the highway. The 10-hour drive back to Ohio didn't seem so long anymore. I wasn't just driving back to the sunroom. I was driving back as their savior. I was driving back with the answer to all our problems. I pulled onto their street. Our street. The house looked exactly the same. The grass was a little high, I noticed. Ryan always forgot to mow on Tuesdays. I parked my old truck at the curb, the engine ticking as it cooled. My hand was on the door handle. I almost fumbled the envelope. I grabbed it, holding it tight. $18 million. A smile spread across my face, a real, genuine smile. It felt strange, like a muscle I hadn't used in 8 months. I could feel the weariness of the 10-hour drive, but underneath it, this new warm energy was bubbling up. I wasn't a burden anymore. I wasn't the old man on the pull-out sofa. I wasn't the ghost Jenna had to step around in her own kitchen. I was their savior. I thought about Ryan's face, the constant worry lines etched between his brows. I heard him and Jenna whispering late at night, panicked whispers about the mortgage, about credit cards, about the car payment. I was going to wipe all that away. I imagined the look on his face when I told him. The relief, the pure flooding relief. Maybe Jenna would even cry. She'd hug me. A real hug, not the stiff, polite pat on the back she'd given me since I moved in. "Oh, Dad, Walter," she'd say, "you saved us. I could buy my own place. A small, clean apartment just a few blocks away. I'd have my own kitchen. I'd make them dinner on Sundays. A real Sunday roast like Isla used to make." I got out of the truck, holding the envelope like it was a winning lottery ticket. I walked up the cracked concrete path past the overgrown rose bushes Isla had planted. My step felt lighter than it had in years. I didn't even use my key. I wanted to knock. I wanted to see them open the door. I raised my hand, my knuckles just inches from the painted wood. And that's when I heard her voice. Jenna. It wasn't her usual company voice, the high, polite one she used for neighbors. It was her real voice, the one I heard when she was on the phone with the credit card company. It was sharp. It was cold. "Ryan, I'm telling you I can't take it anymore." I froze. My hand just hung there in the air. "He just wanders around the house like a ghost," she said. Her voice was perfectly clear through the thin door. "He's always there. I feel like I'm running a charity ward, not a home. He shuffles. He sighs. I can't even have my coffee in peace." My smile dissolved. A chill started in my stomach and spread outwards. I heard Ryan's voice, muffled and tired. "Jenna, please keep your voice down. He's my dad. He's grieving Isla. He's got nowhere else to go." Jenna let out a laugh. It wasn't a laugh. It was a short, bitter bark. "Grieving. We're all grieving. We grieved when we had to sell his house. We're grieving now that we're broke. But we have our own lives to live, Ryan. We have bills to pay. His 71st birthday is next month. We'll tell him then. We have to." My blood ran cold. Tell him. Tell him what, Jenna?" Ryan's voice was weak. He knew the answer. He was just afraid to hear it. "That we found him a place," Jenna said. Her voice was suddenly flat, decisive, like a judge passing sentence. "That Golden Meadows has an opening. It's clean. It's safe. It's what we can afford." The envelope in my hand suddenly felt like a block of ice. Golden Meadows. I knew that name. Everybody in our part of Ohio knew that name. It wasn't a golden anything. It was the state-run facility. The long, low brick building out by the highway, the one with the chain-link fence around the concrete patio, the one that smelled like bleach and boiled vegetables. It wasn't assisted living. It wasn't a retirement community. It was the end of the line. The place you sent people when you were just waiting for them to. "Jenna, that's," Ryan stammered. "That's a home. It's where people go when—" "It's what we can afford," she snapped. She was yelling now. "He's a financial black hole, Ryan. He contributes nothing. He just sits in that sunroom eating our food, upping our electric bill, costing us money we don't have. It's him or us. And I am choosing us. End of discussion." I took a step back from the door. I almost stumbled on the welcome mat. The envelope in my hand. The $18 million. My plan. My fantasy of saving them, of being their hero, of fixing everything. It all evaporated. It wasn't just that they were struggling. It was that they were cruel. They weren't my family waiting for help. They were my jailers waiting for the right moment to lock me away. The man they thought was a broke, useless, grieving old man. A cold, hard, terrible anger rose up in my throat. It tasted like metal. They wanted to see how much of a burden I was on. I'd show them. My hands were shaking, but not from grief. It was a cold, sharp rage. I looked at the thick envelope. $18 million. My ticket out. My revenge. But they couldn't know, not yet. I carefully folded the will and the asset summary. I didn't put it back in my jacket. That was the first place they'd look if they thought I was losing my mind. I slid the folded papers deep into the front pocket of my trousers, a lump against my leg, hidden by the cheap fabric of my coat. I stood there on the doormat for a full minute, just breathing. In, out. I let the cold anger settle, pushing it down deep. I couldn't be angry. Angry men aren't seen as senile. They're just seen as angry. I needed to be what they wanted me to be. I needed to be what they expected me to be. A broken old man, a burden, a ghost. I thought about Isla. I thought about the raw, aching hole her death had left in my chest. I let that real grief rise up. I let it fill my face. I let my shoulders slump, letting the 10-hour drive and the 20-year estrangement from my father weigh me down. I let the tears that were stinging my eyes well up, blurring the hallway in front of me. I put my hand on the doorknob. It felt cold. I turned it slowly and pushed the door open. The sound of the latch clicking echoed in the kitchen. The voices stopped, instantly. When I shuffled into the doorway, they both jumped up from the kitchen table. They looked like children caught with their hands in the cookie jar. Ryan's face went pale, then red. Jenna, she was a better actor. Her face immediately melted into a mask of pure, liquid concern. "Oh, Dad! Walter!" She rushed forward, her hands fluttering, not quite touching me. "You're back. My goodness, we didn't hear you drive up. We were just talking about what to make for dinner." She was lying right to my face. "Dad," Ryan said. His voice was strained. He couldn't look me in the eye. He was looking at my shoulder, at the wall behind me. "Hey, how was the drive? Was it bad?" I didn't answer. I just stood there, letting them take in the picture I was painting. The defeated old man home from a funeral with nothing. I let out a long, shaky sigh that came from a real place of pain. "Walter, Dad," Jenna pushed, her voice sickly sweet. "You look terrible. Just exhausted. Was the funeral awful?" I nodded slowly, shuffling past her to the kitchen table. The table where just moments ago they had signed my death warrant. I sat down heavily in my usual chair. It scraped against the linoleum. "It's over," I said. My voice was rough, quiet. "He's gone." "Oh, Dad, of course," Jenna said, sitting across from me, leaning in. Her eyes were bright. Too bright. She wasn't sad. She was vibrating. She was vibrating with anticipation. "We're so glad you're home," Ryan said, still standing awkwardly by the counter. Can I get you a glass of water, some coffee?" He was desperate to be helpful, desperate to do something, anything, to erase the words he'd just said, the words he thought I hadn't heard. I just shook my head. "No, I'm fine." I looked at my hands on their table, my old calloused hands, the hands that had fixed Ryan's bicycle chain 1,000 times, the hands that had walked him to school, the hands that had paid for this very table. Jenna couldn't wait any longer. I could see the greed crawling all over her face, disguised as polite inquiry. "Well, we're just glad it's over, Dad," she said, placing her smooth, manicured hand on the table just inches from mine. "I know this is hard, but did everything get sorted out with the estate?" Ryan flinched. "Jenna," he whispered. "He just got back. Give him a minute." "I'm just asking Ryan." She snapped her eyes, never leaving my face. "He's family. We're his family. We just want to know if everything is okay. Dad, the lawyer, did Hector leave anything?" There it was. The question. The real reason they were concerned. The real reason they'd offered me water. I looked up from my hands. I looked at Jenna's bright, hungry eyes. I looked at Ryan's guilty, weak face. I let the silence stretch. I let them wait for it. I let them hang on that one single burning question. I took a shaky breath just like I'd practiced. I made my face crumple just a little. Jenna, Ryan, I started. I'm afraid I have some bad news. Jenna leaned in. I could see the muscles in her jaw tighten. Bad news, Dad. What do you mean? I let my gaze fall to the kitchen table, to the coffee rings on the cheap placemat. I clasped my hands together, forcing them to look like they were trembling. The funeral. It was quick. I said, my voice quiet. Hardly anyone was there. Just me and the lawyer. I looked up, making sure to meet Ryan's nervous eyes first, then Jenna's intense, focused stare. It's the estate. The will. It's not what anyone thought. What does that mean? Jenna asked. Her voice lost its fake syrup sweetness. It was just sharp, impatient. It means, I said, faking a dry swallow, it means there's nothing. In fact, it's worse than nothing. Ryan frowned, finally speaking. Nothing, Dad. What about those farms? You said he had farms. He did, I said. I let my voice crack just a little, pulling on the real grief I felt for my wife, for my life, for the son I thought I had. He did. 3 of them, but it turns out they weren't worth anything. Just empty land. And he owed money on them. Owed money. Jenna repeated the words slowly. They sounded like poison in her mouth. He'd mortgaged them, I said. The lie came so easily it scared me. Years ago, he took out huge loans against all 3 properties. The lawyer Harrison, he showed me the paperwork. The banks, they're taking them back. All of them. There's nothing left. I let that sink in. I watched the last bit of hope drain out of Ryan's face. He looked like I'd just punched him in the stomach. He sagged against the counter. But Jenna wasn't just disappointed. She was furious. I could see a small vein pulsing in her temple. So you mean, she said, her voice dangerously low, you went all that way, and there is nothing. It's worse than that, Jenna, I said, looking straight at her. This was the part that mattered. This was the real test. Harrison, the lawyer, he said Hector, my father, he hadn't paid property taxes on any of that land. Not in over 5 years. So, she snapped. So, I said, letting my voice drop to a hopeless whisper. As the sole heir, the lawyer says I might be responsible for it. The state of Wyoming, the IRS, they'll come after me for the back taxes. Harrison said, he said it could be tens of thousands of dollars. I watched the calculation happen behind her eyes, the quick, frantic math, the realization. The man sitting at her kitchen table was no longer just a neutral burden, a piece of old furniture to be stored in the sunroom. I was now a liability, a financial anchor. I was about to drag their already sinking ship, the ship I'd heard them worrying about late at night, straight to the bottom of the ocean. I looked down at the table, playing the part of the defeated, broken old man to perfection. Tens of thousands. I don't know what I'm going to do, my Social Security. It's not even... I let my voice trail off. The silence that filled the kitchen was absolute. It was so cold, it felt like the sunroom in January. I just waited. I waited for one of them. For Ryan. For my son. I waited for him to say, "Don't worry, Dad. We'll figure it out. We're a family." I waited for him to put his hand on my shoulder. I waited for just one shred of the boy. I had raised the boy who cried when he scraped his knee, the boy I taught to ride a bike. But the silence just stretched on. Ryan wouldn't look at me. He was staring at Jenna, his face pale, waiting for her permission, waiting for her to tell him what to do, and Jenna wasn't looking at me either. She was staring at the wall just past my head. Her face, that mask of fake sympathy, had gone completely blank. It was smooth, empty, terrifying. She didn't look concerned. She didn't look sad. She looked trapped. And she looked disgusted. Finally, she moved. She pushed her chair back from the table. The legs made a violent scraping shriek against the linoleum floor. It sounded like a scream. Debts. Her voice was quiet. Not a yell. It was a hiss. Ryan visibly flinched. Jenna, honey, calm down. No. She stood up. Her hands were balled into tight white fists at her sides. She finally turned her gaze on me, and the mask was gone. There was no more Dad Walter. There was no more family. Her eyes were narrowed, her face white with a rage so pure it was almost impressive. Debts, she shouted, and the word exploded in the small kitchen. Are you kidding me? You're telling us you came back here with more debts? Jenna, stop, Ryan pleaded. He finally looked at me, his eyes wide with a different kind of panic. He just lost his father. I don't care, she wheeled on him. He's not your father. He's a leech, we took him in. We gave him a home, our home, we feed him. And now this, so he's bringing the IRS down on our house. It's not… I don't know if they will, I stammered, holding on to my role, the terrified old man. You're not just a burden anymore, old man, she spat the words at me. You're a risk, you're a black hole, you are going to take us down with you. She was breathing hard, her chest heaving. Jenna, please calm down. Ryan tried again, his voice weak. We'll talk about this. We'll figure something out. Right, Dad? We can call the lawyer, maybe? Call the lawyer with what money, Ryan? She laughed, that awful, bitter sound I'd heard through the door. With the money he doesn't have, with the money we don't have, no. No, I'm done. I am absolutely done. She turned her back rigid and stormed out of the kitchen. I heard her footsteps pound up the stairs. A second later, the bedroom door slammed shut. The vibration rattled the glasses in the kitchen cabinet. The trap was sprung, and the animal was caught. I looked at Ryan. He was still standing by the counter, his shoulders slumped. He looked like a balloon that had been popped, completely defeated. He wouldn't look at me. Ryan, I whispered. He just shook his head, not at me, but at the floor. I should go check on her, Dad. She's just upset. She doesn't mean it. But he knew she did. And I knew she did. He turned and walked out of the kitchen, dutifully following his wife. I was left alone at the table. The house was silent again. But this time I knew the truth. I slowly got up from the chair. I made sure to shuffle my feet just in case they were listening. I walked back to my cold sunroom. I closed the sliding glass door that separated me from the rest of the house. I sat on the edge of the pull-out sofa, the springs groaning under my weight. I felt the hard, thick lump of the envelope in my trousers pocket. $18 million. They had no idea. They had no idea what was coming for them. The slam of the bedroom door echoed through the house, and then silence. I sat there in the cold sunroom listening. The house had never felt so quiet. It wasn't the peaceful quiet that Isla and I used to share reading in the evenings. It was a heavy, suffocating silence, a silence full of anger and disappointment. My son didn't come to check on me. He didn't come to apologize for his wife's outburst. He just stayed upstairs, protecting her, choosing her. That night I slept in my coat. The pull-out sofa felt lumpier than usual, the springs digging into my back. But it wasn't the discomfort that kept me awake. It was the cold, hard knot in my stomach. The trap was set. My own family had walked right into it. Now I had to see how deep the rot went. The next morning I shuffled into the kitchen. Jenna was there pouring herself a cup of coffee. She was wearing expensive-looking yoga pants and a tight athletic top. Her hair pulled back in a perfect ponytail. She didn't look like someone who was worried about losing her house. She just looked annoyed. She didn't say good morning. She just glanced at me, her eyes flat and cold, and turned back to the coffee machine. I think I'll make some toast, I said, my voice quiet, playing the part. The bread's in the fridge, she said, not turning around. And don't use more than 2 slices. Ryan has to pack his lunch. I nodded even though she couldn't see me. I got the bread. I made my 2 slices of toast. I ate them standing at the counter with a glass of tap water. She poured her coffee into a big mug, added a splash of expensive cream from a carton, and walked right past me into the living room as if I were a piece of furniture. A piece of furniture she disliked. I went to sit in the living room in the old armchair Isla and I had bought together. Jenna was on the sofa scrolling through her phone, one leg tucked under her. That's when I saw it. On the coffee table, placed just so, was a brochure, a glossy trifold pamphlet. My eyesight isn't what it used to be, but I could make out the words on the front. Golden Meadows. Underneath a picture of 2 smiling gray-haired people, a man and a woman playing checkers on a perfectly manicured lawn. It looked like heaven. It was the marketing for hell. My heart hammered. So soon. She wasn't even waiting for my birthday. She was starting the campaign now. I pretended not to see it clearly. I squinted. Jenna, what's that, dear? She looked up from her phone, her face a mask of perfect innocence. What's what, Walter? That paper, on the table. She glanced at it as if she was seeing it for the first time. Oh, that I don't know, just some mail that came. I think it's for, seniors. It looked nice. She smiled at me. A bright, fake, terrible smile. Just planning for the future, she said. She went back to her phone. The message was clear. This is your future. Get used to it. That night, the cruelty became less subtle. I was in the sunroom reading an old paperback I'd read a dozen times. I heard the sounds of dinner, the clinking of plates, the smell of... Was that steak? I hadn't smelled steak in this house in months. I waited. My stomach rumbled. I waited for Ryan or Jenna to call me. Dad, dinner. Nothing. I heard them talking. I heard their forks scraping their plates. I heard the TV in the living room, the volume turned up. An hour passed. The smells faded. Finally, around 8 o'clock, the sliding door to the sunroom opened. It was Ryan. He was holding a small plate. On it was a piece of steak, but it was mostly gristle, and a spoonful of cold mashed potatoes. Hey, Dad, he said, not meeting my eyes. Sorry we didn't call you. We just got to talking and, well, Jenna made enough. He handed me the plate. It felt like an insult. It was an insult. This was the scrap, the part they would have thrown in the trash or given to a dog. Thanks, son, I said, my voice meek. Yeah. Well. Good night, Dad. He slid the door shut, plunging the sunroom back into darkness, leaving me with my plate of cold scraps. It got worse. The next day, the portions were smaller still. Jenna made a big pot of chicken soup. She and Ryan had full bowls with big pieces of chicken and vegetables. My bowl, it was mostly broth. We're on a budget, Walter, she explained brightly as she watched me eat. With, your situation. We all have to tighten our belts. Every penny counts. She said it with a smile. But it was a warning. You are costing us. Then the cold started. The sunroom was always chilly, but I had a small electric space heater that Isla had bought me. It made the room bearable. On Wednesday night, I clicked the switch. Nothing. I clicked it again. I checked the plug. It was dead. I put on another sweater and shivered under the thin blanket. The next morning, I told Jenna, The heater in the sunroom, it seems to be broken. She barely looked up from her laptop. She was probably scrolling through online casinos. Oh, really? That's a shame. It was old. Those things don't last forever. Ryan will take a look at it when he has time. He never had time. The nights became a test of endurance. I slept in my coat. I woke up stiff, my bones aching from the damp cold. I was 70 years old, and I was freezing to death in my own son's house while they slept upstairs in their warm, comfortable bed. They were trying to break me. They were trying to make life so miserable, so physically uncomfortable, that when they offered me Golden Meadows again, I would beg to go. A week after I'd gotten back the final petty cruelty. I had a small 13-inch television in the sunroom. An old thing, but it was my only company. I sat down one night aching from the cold and reached for the remote. It was gone. It wasn't on the table. It wasn't on the floor. It wasn't in the sofa cushions. It had vanished. Jenna, I asked the next day, have you seen the remote for my TV? She frowned, tapping her chin in mock thought. The remote, no. Are you sure you didn't misplace it? You've been a little forgetful lately, Walter. There it was. Forgetful. The first shot fired in the war for my mind. I don't think so, I said. I always leave it right on the table. Well, it'll turn up, she said with a shrug. Or not. To be honest, the doctor says too much television isn't good for cognitive decline. You're probably better off resting. Just rest your eyes. I went back to my room. No heat. No television. Just me, my books, and the cold. I sat on the sofa and I didn't feel broken. I felt hard. I felt like a piece of steel being forged. They were hammering me, trying to make me weak, but they were just making me stronger. I took the envelope out of my pocket. I hadn't dared look at it all week. I unfolded the asset summary. $18 million. They were freezing a millionaire to death over a $20 space heater. They were starving a man who could buy their entire neighborhood. I held the paper in my cold, red hands. They thought I was forgetful. They thought I was senile. They thought I was a burden. Okay, I whispered to the empty, cold room. I'll be what you want me to be. I would be the most forgetful, most confused, most pathetic old man they had ever seen, until the moment it mattered. I must have drifted off, because the sound that woke me wasn't gradual. It was a sharp, percussive thump that echoed from the kitchen. I snapped awake, my heart leaping into my throat. The sunroom was pitch black, the glass walls cold to the touch. I could see my own breath fogging in the air. My clock read 3:15 in the morning. I lay perfectly still, listening. Then I heard it again. Not a thump, a voice. Jenna's. She wasn't hissing, she wasn't whispering, she was sobbing. A raw, high-pitched, terrified sound. Ryan, you have to do something. You have to. They called again. They didn't just call the house, they called my cell. My skin went cold. I pushed myself off the agonizing springs of the sofa, my joints screaming in protest from the freezing air. I didn't bother with shoes. I crept barefoot across the icy tile floor to the sliding glass door that separated my prison from their home. The vertical blinds were cracked, just barely. I pressed my face close my ear, almost touching the glass. What do you want me to do, Jenna? Ryan's voice. I had never heard him sound like that. It wasn't weak. It wasn't tired. It was broken. It was the sound of a man who had nothing left. I gave you everything, he said, his voice cracking. I gave you the last of my 401k last month. You told me it was the last time. It's gone, Jenna. All of it. There is nothing left. It's not gone. I can win it back. She shrieked, but she choked the sound back into a desperate, strangled whisper. I was just on a bad streak. I know my system works. That last online site, it was rigged. I'm sure of it. If I can just make one more deposit, just another 1,000. My mind couldn't catch up. Online site, win it back. $1,000. Ryan laughed. It was the most terrible sound I'd ever heard. It was a laugh with no air, no humor. It was the sound of a dead man laughing. Jenna, are you insane? We don't have $1,000. We don't have 100. The collection agency, they called me yesterday. At my office. On my work phone, Jenna. My boss heard. Shh, keep your voice down, she hissed. You'll wake him. You'll wake your father. I don't care if he wakes up, Ryan roared, and I heard another thump this time against the wall. What's he going to do? Put us in his will. He's got nothing. He came back with debts. Jenna debts. He's worse than useless. I flinched back from the glass, as if he had slapped me. My lie. My stupid perfect trap. It had worked better than I could have ever imagined. We were counting on that, Ryan. Jenna's voice was a desperate whine. You told me his father was old. You told me he had property. We were counting on that. It was our only way out. It was our last chance. Well, it didn't happen, Ryan shouted. He left us with more problems. He left us with taxes. There was a long, terrible silence. I heard Jenna just crying, deep gulping sobs. Then I heard Ryan's voice flat, dead. They're going to foreclose, aren't they? I stopped breathing. Foreclosure. That certified letter we got yesterday. Ryan continued, his voice monotone. The one you said was just junk mail. It wasn't junk mail, was it? It was the notice. The notice of foreclosure. We have 30 days, Jenna whispered. Her voice was tiny. Just 30 days, Ryan, until they put the notice on the front door. Everyone on the street. They'll know. You should have thought of that before you started online gambling again, Ryan yelled. I told you I could fix it. I was so close. You've been fixing it for 6 months, he roared. You fixed my retirement account. You fixed the kids' college fund that Isla left them. My mother's money, Jenna. You fixed us right into the ground. I backed away from the door. I sat back down on the freezing sofa, but I didn't feel the cold anymore. I felt nothing. Just a vast, empty roaring in my ears. It all made sense. It wasn't just me. It wasn't just that I was an old man in their way. They were desperate. They were drowning. Jenna, my daughter-in-law, the smiling PTA mom, perfect housewife Jenna. She was a gambler, an online gambler. She had gambled away their entire life. She had gambled away the money my wife Isla had so carefully set aside for her grandchildren. And Ryan, my son, my only boy, he hadn't stopped her. He had enabled her. He had fed her addiction with his own retirement, covered for her, lied for her, until there was nothing left. I suddenly understood everything. The brochures for Golden Meadows, the cold shoulders, the scraps of food. They hadn't just been mean, they had been waiting. They had been white-knuckling it for months, staring at the calendar, just waiting for my father Hector to die. They saw my trip to Wyoming as a payday. They saw my return as their salvation. They weren't just hoping I'd bring back a little extra cash to help out. They were praying for a windfall. They were counting on it as their last desperate final chance. And when I sat at that kitchen table, when I looked them in the eye and played my part, when I told them my beautiful, terrible lie, when I said that one simple word, debts, I hadn't just disappointed them. I had destroyed their last hope. I had been their final lottery ticket, and I had come up a loser. That was why the cruelty had started. The cold room, the lost remote, the scraps of food. It wasn't just to make me leave. It was punishment. It was their bitter, childish, desperate rage, because I had failed them. I had failed to be the rich old relative who could magically solve all their problems. I sat there in the pitch black of the sunroom, listening to my son and his wife sobbing together in the kitchen. They were no longer just cruel. They were cornered. And I knew with a terrifying absolute certainty that a cornered, drowning animal is the most dangerous thing in the world. They weren't just going to ask me to go to Golden Meadows. They were going to make me go. I sat there in the dark, the cold seeping up from the floorboards, but I didn't feel it. My blood had turned to ice. Foreclosure. Gambling. 30 days. The words echoed in my head louder than their fading sobs from the kitchen. It all slotted into place. The sudden coldness, the scraps of food, the stolen remote, the cognitive decline comment from Jenna. My skin crawled. That casual throwaway line. "You've been a little forgetful lately, Walter." It wasn't just a petty insult. It was a test. It was the first stone being laid on a path to Golden Meadows. But how do you force a man into a nursing home when he says no, you don't? Not unless he's forgetful. Not unless he's confused. Not unless he's legally declared incompetent. I stood up, my joints cracking in the cold. I started pacing the tiny room 3 steps one way, 3 steps back. They were desperate. They weren't just cruel, they were cornered. A cornered animal doesn't just run, it bites. Jenna needed money. She needed it 30 days ago. She was furious that I hadn't brought home a windfall. But what if she started to think I was lying? What if she thought I did have money and I was just a senile old man hoarding it from them, or worse? What if they didn't care about the inheritance anymore? What about my money, my Social Security, my pension from the auto plant? It wasn't much, just over $2,000 a month. But to them, right now, $2,000 was a lifeline. If I was declared incompetent, if Ryan or Jenna were granted guardianship, they wouldn't just be able to put me in Golden Meadows. They would be able to control me. They would control my bank account. They would take my pension. They would take my Social Security. They would bleed me dry using my own money to pay for the privilege of rotting in a state-run home while they used the rest to pay off Jenna's gambling debts. And the will. My God. The will. The envelope was still in my pocket. $18 million. If they got guardianship, if they got legal control of Walter Barn, incompetent adult, they would get control of everything. They wouldn't just be taking my $2,000 a month. They would stumble backwards into the very fortune they thought they'd lost. Jenna's words came back to me. It's him or us, and I am choosing us. She meant it. She would sign any paper, tell any lie, find any crooked doctor to save her own skin. She was already stealing from her children's college fund money Isla had left. What would she do to a confused old man who was in her way? I had to move. I had to move now, before morning. I was alone in this. I couldn't call Ryan. He was weak. He was complicit. He had chosen his side. I had to protect myself. And I had to protect my father's legacy. I grabbed my old coat, pulling it on over my pajamas. I fumbled in the darkness for my old flip phone. It was on the wicker nightstand plugged into the charger. My fingers were numb from the cold, and I almost dropped it. I flipped it open. The screen lit up the tiny cold room with a pale blue glow. 3:30 a.m. I scrolled through my contacts. There were only 5 names. Isla home, Ryan cell, Jenna cell, my doctor, and the last number I had added. The lawyer, Harrison. He was in Wyoming. That meant it was only 1:30 a.m. his time. I didn't care. I didn't care if I woke him up. I didn't care if he was angry. This couldn't wait. I pressed the call button. I held the phone to my ear, my heart pounding so hard I thought it would burst. I prayed he would pick up. 1 ring, 2 rings, 3. Hello. A man's voice, sleepy, annoyed. Mr. Harrison, I whispered, my voice trembling. This is Walter Byron, Hector Byron's son. I'm sorry to call so late. I'm in trouble. I heard him sit up, the rustling of sheets. His voice was suddenly wide awake. Walter, what's wrong? What kind of trouble? I stood there in the freezing dark, the blue light of my phone illuminating my shaking hands, and I whispered the truth. They're trying to put me away, I said. My son, my daughter-in-law, they're trying to declare me incompetent. They think I'm poor and in debt. I overheard them. They're desperate. And they don't know about the will. They don't know about the money. But if they get guardianship, they'll get everything. There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end of the line. My God, Harrison said. His voice was low and serious. Walter, listen to me. Listen to me very carefully. You are in immediate danger. Walter, you are in a very bad spot, Harrison said. His voice was no longer sleepy. It was sharp, clear, and urgent. It was the voice of a man who understood risk. This isn't a family squabble. This is a legal maneuver. If they file for an emergency guardianship hearing and claim you're a danger to yourself, or that you're forgetful, they could get a judge to grant them temporary control before you even get to speak. Guardianship. I whispered the word. It sounded ugly. That's what they do. It's what I would do if I were them, Harrison said bluntly. They think you're poor and in debt. They'll argue you're a burden, that you can't care for yourself, and that your debts prove you're mentally unfit to handle your own affairs. They'll claim they just want to protect you. Protect me. My blood ran hot again, chasing away the cold. Protect me by throwing me into a state-run facility. What do I do? I asked, pacing the 3 steps my room allowed. I can't just walk out. I have nowhere to go, not yet. You have $18 million, Walter, Harrison reminded me. That's somewhere to go. But we have to be smart. We have to be fast. They can't know. If they get a court order, they could freeze your assets, including the inheritance. They don't know about it, I said. They think I'm in debt. I lied to them. There was a pause on the line. I heard a quiet click like a pen. You lied to them, Harrison asked. I told them my father left me nothing but taxes. I had a feeling. I heard them before I even walked in the door. They were planning to get rid of me. I set a trap, and they walked right into it. The pause was longer this time. When Harrison spoke again, there was a new sound in his voice. It was respect. Good God, Walter. That was brilliant and dangerous. But it buys us time. They're acting on the assumption you're worthless. We can use that. They're acting fast, I whispered, glancing at the crack in the blinds. The kitchen was dark again. They must have gone back to bed satisfied with their night's work of terrorizing each other. Jenna, my daughter-in-law, she's desperate. They're going to lose this house. She's a gambler. Okay, Harrison said. Okay. That makes it worse. She's not just cruel, she's an addict. She's unpredictable. We have to move now. Walter, what do you want to do? I stopped pacing. I looked at my own faint reflection in the cold glass of the sunroom door. I saw the face of a scared 70-year-old man in a worn-out coat. But behind the fear, I felt something else. I felt Hector, my father. That hard, unbending mining town stubbornness. I wasn't just going to run. I was going to fight. First, I said, and my voice didn't tremble, I need money, money they can't find, money they can't touch, no matter what they do. Okay, Harrison said. We can liquidate some of the stocks your father held. No, I cut him off. Too slow. And it leaves a paper trail they might find. Sell one of the farms, sell the smallest one, the one out by the interstate. Harrison, I was there. I saw it. It's the least valuable, but it's the most accessible. Someone will buy it fast. Walter, to sell a piece of real estate like that, even a cash sale, it takes weeks, appraisals, titles. I don't care, I said. Sell it. Sell it cheap. Sell it today. I don't care if we lose a little. I need it done. Find one of those big land developers, one of those gas companies. Offer them a deal they can't refuse. I need liquidity. I'll take $4 million for it, even if it's worth $5 million. Harrison was quiet for a moment. I heard him typing on a keyboard. I might know someone, he said slowly. A ranching consortium that's been trying to buy that parcel for a year. Hector always refused. They might move fast if they think the price is right. $4.5 million. I can make that call in the morning. Make it now, I said. Walter, it's 1:30 in the morning. Then you wake him up. I said, my voice as hard as my father's. You tell him he has until noon tomorrow to wire the money or the deal is off. Tell him it's a family emergency. Another pause. Okay, Walter. I'll do it. I'll get the ball rolling. Where do I send the money? Not to me, I said. That's the second thing. And this is the most important part. I need you to set up a trust. One of those, what do you call them? Irrevocable ones. The kind that I can't even break. An irrevocable trust. Harrison's voice was sharp again. Walter, that's a permanent decision. Once that money is in there, it's locked away. It's for estate planning, for tax shelters. It's not a checking account. I know, I said, my gaze fixed on the dark kitchen beyond the glass. I know exactly what it is. I want that $4.5 million to go straight from the sale into that trust. And I want the trust documents to be ironclad. Only I can access the funds. Not my son, not my daughter-in-law, not a legal guardian, not a power of attorney. No one. Just me. Can you do that? Yes, Harrison said. Yes, I can draft that. It will make you the sole trustee and the sole beneficiary. It would be very difficult for anyone to pierce, even with a court order. They would have to prove you were incompetent at the time you signed the trust, not just now. And right now you sound sharper than anyone I've spoken to all week. Good, I said. Do it. Get the money. Lock it down. I don't want them to get their hands on a single penny of Hector Byron's money. I'm on it, Walter. I'll call the consortium contact right now. I'll call you back as soon as I have news. In the meantime, you be careful. Don't sign anything. Don't agree to anything. Don't go anywhere with them. Don't worry, I said, looking at my ghostly reflection in the glass. I'm just a confused old man. I'm just a burden. I wouldn't know how to sign my own name, would I? I ended the call. I stood in the freezing darkness. I was still a prisoner. I was still cold. But I wasn't a victim anymore. I was a man with a $4.5 million secret, and I was just getting started. I was still standing in the freezing dark, the cheap flip phone pressed hot against my ear. Harrison, I said, my voice just a whisper. There's one more thing. What is it, Walter? My daughter-in-law, Jenna Byrne. I overheard them. She's a gambler. Online, I think. She's the reason they're losing the house. She's the one driving this. Ryan, my son, he's just going along with it. Okay, Harrison said. His voice was pure business now. I need to know, I said, my throat tightening. I need to know everything. How bad is it? How much does she owe? Who does she owe it to? I heard her mention $220,000. I need to know if it's true. I need proof, Harrison. Ammunition. You're asking me to run a private investigation on your daughter-in-law, Walter. That's a different level. I'm asking you to protect your client's assets. I retorted, my voice suddenly sharp. This woman is trying to get guardianship of me. If she's this desperate, she won't stop. I need to know what I'm up against. I need to know exactly what kind of snake I'm living with. Can you do it? There was a short, sharp sigh on the other end. I have a firm I use in Cheyenne for background checks. They have affiliates everywhere. It'll cost money. I have $18 million, Harrison, I said. Find out. Find out everything. And fast. I'm on it, he said. I'll make the calls. The land sale, the trust, the investigation. Walter, stay safe. And stay quiet. Act the part. Don't worry, I said, looking at my ghostly reflection in the glass. I'm just a confused old man. I wouldn't know how to sign my own name, would I? I clicked the phone shut. The blue light died, plunging me back into the absolute darkness of the sunroom. My heart was a drum against my ribs. Wheels were turning. Wheels of finance, wheels of law, wheels of private investigation. Millions of dollars were about to move. Secrets were about to be unearthed. And I had to do nothing. I had to do worse than nothing. I had to become the man they wanted me to be. The next morning, I shuffled into the kitchen. Jenna was there, already dressed, her face hard and pale. She was banging cupboards. I'm looking for the, I said, patting my pockets, my face a mask of confusion. The bread. Jenna let out a sigh so loud it sounded like a tire deflating. She yanked open the refrigerator. It's where it always is, Walter. In the fridge. Are you even awake? Oh yes. Silly me. I mumbled, fumbling for the bag, making sure to drop it once. She watched me, her arms crossed. Ryan and I were talking, she said, her voice sharp. We're very, very worried about you. About these debts. Debts? I asked, looking up, my eyes wide with fake panic. Oh, the taxes. Yes, it's a lot. I don't know what to do. That's just it, she said, moving in. This was the opening. You don't know what to do. You're overwhelmed. You're forgetting things. You're not capable of handling this, Walter. You need help. I'm just tired, I stammered, shuffling away from her, clutching my 2 slices of bread like a shield. I'm just tired from the trip. I made a point of being visible in my confusion. I sat in the living room in Isla's old armchair and just stared. I stared at the blank television screen, the one I had no remote for. When Ryan came home from work, he found me sitting there in the dusk, the room dark around me. Dad? He asked, his voice hesitant. Are you okay? Why are you sitting in the dark? I blinked as if waking from a deep fog. Oh. Hello, Ryan. Is it nighttime already? I must have dozed off. I saw him look at Jenna over my head. A look of pained confirmation. See, he's losing it. The space heater remained broken. The remote remained missing. The food portions remained tiny. I ate my cold, watery soup in the freezing sunroom. I made sure to shiver when Jenna walked by. I let them see me shivering. I let them see the pathetic old man freezing, forgetful, and now, a financial threat. Every cold sigh Jenna gave me, every guilty, pained look Ryan shot my way. It was fuel. They were building their case against me, and in doing so, they were building my case against them. All the while, my flip phone buried in my coat pocket and set to vibrate was a silent link to my new reality. I'd wait until 3 in the morning when I knew they were asleep. I'd lock myself in the freezing downstairs bathroom and check my messages. A text from Harrison. Consortium is in, wire transfer in progress. Another text a day later. Trust documents signed, sealed, and funded. 4.5 million is secure. They can't touch it. I would read the texts in the dark, the blue light hidden under my coat, and then I would delete them instantly. I was the richest man in that house, and I was performing for my life. I was a ghost. I was a burden. I was a confused, forgetful old man. They were so busy building their trap they never realized they were already caught in mine. It had been 8 days since I set my trap. 8 days of being the man they wanted me to be. I shivered constantly in the sunroom wearing my coat indoors. I ate the scraps they gave me without complaint. Watery soup. The heels of the bread. Once Jenna forgot to give me dinner entirely, and I just sat in my cold room, my stomach growling, and I did not ask for anything. I let them see me shivering. I let them see me shuffling my feet. I lost my socks. I forgot Ryan's name twice, calling him son, as if I couldn't place him. I let them see me standing at the glass door, staring into the backyard for 20 minutes, just staring. Every time I would see Ryan look at Jenna out of the corner of his eye. His face was a mask of guilt and pain. He was being torn apart. Jenna, though, she was different. She wasn't guilty. She was impatient. The foreclosure date was getting closer. They had 22 days left. The polite fiction was over. The cruelty was now routine. It happened on a Tuesday night. I was in my chair in the sunroom pretending to read an old newspaper from a week ago, holding it upside down. I was hoping one of them would notice. Jenna did. I saw her walk by the door, glance at the paper, and then smirk at Ryan. They came in together. A united front. My heart started to pound. This was it. Dad, Ryan started. His voice was heavy, like he was about to put down a sick dog. Jenna pushed past him. Her voice was the one that scared me. It wasn't angry anymore. It was gentle. It was the voice of a spider talking to a fly. Walter, she said, kneeling in front of my chair. Ryan stood behind her, his hands jammed in his pockets, staring at the ceiling. Walter, honey, Ryan and I, we are so worried about you. I blinked, widening my eyes, trying to look as confused and frail as possible. Worried. Why, I'm all right. Just a little cold in here. Jenna put her smooth, warm hand on my cold, bony one. Her manicure was perfect. It took all my strength not to pull my hand away. No, you're not all right, sweetheart, she cooed. You're not eating. You're forgetting things. You lost the remote, remember, and you were sitting in the dark all last night. That's not healthy. I was just resting my eyes, I mumbled, looking down. We know, she said, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. You're just overwhelmed. You're grieving Isla. And now these awful debts. It's just too much for one person to handle. Ryan and I, we've been talking, and we love you so much. We just want to help you get better. Better? I repeated the word as if I didn't understand it. Yes, Ryan chimed in. His voice cracked. He was a terrible actor. We found someone, Dad. A doctor. He's a friend of Jenna's family. My heart hammered. Here it was. The final move. Jenna squeezed my hand. His name is Dr. Smith. He's a specialist in senior health. He helps people who are feeling overwhelmed just like you. He's wonderful. We told him all about your situation. You told him about me. Yes, Jenna said, her smile bright and tight. And he's agreed to come by just as a favor to us. Just to, just to talk to you. He'll be here tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. Isn't that wonderful? He's going to help us make a plan for your care. A plan for my care. Golden Meadows. Dr. Smith. I knew that name. My mind, which they thought was failing, raced back. Smith. Smith. Greg Smith. The man I'd seen at their 4th of July barbecue 2 years ago. The one drinking a beer and laughing too loudly about his golf game. He wasn't a geriatric specialist. He was a psychologist. They weren't bringing a doctor to check my blood pressure. They were bringing a specialist to sign a piece of paper. A paper that said Walter Byrne was confused, disoriented, forgetful, incapable of managing his own affairs. A paper that would be attached to an emergency guardianship petition they would file at the courthouse by noon. By tomorrow at this time, I wouldn't be Walter Byrne anymore. I'd be a ward of my son, a piggy bank for my daughter-in-law. They'd have access to my pension, my Social Security, and then, oh my God, then they would file the paperwork. They would get access to everything. They would find out about the inheritance. Jenna wouldn't just be paying off her debts. She would be hitting the biggest jackpot of her life. I had to play this perfectly. I let my bottom lip tremble. I looked at Jenna, my eyes wide with fake childlike terror. A doctor or... I don't need a doctor. I'm just tired, Jenna. I'm just cold. Shh, it's okay, she cooed, patting my hand as if I were a frightened dog. It's not a real doctor visit. It's just a conversation. He's just going to ask you a few questions to see how your memory is. It's just a formality for insurance. Lies, piled on top of lies. I don't want to, I whispered, trying to pull my hand away, making my protest weak. Now, Walter, don't be difficult. Her voice hardened just for a second, the steel underneath the velvet. It smoothed out again. We're doing this for you, because we love you. 10 a.m. tomorrow. You just be right here in this chair, ready to talk. Okay. I slumped back into the armchair. I let my head fall. I nodded weakly, a single defeated gesture. Okay, Jenna. If you think it's best. We do, she said. She stood up, her mission accomplished. Good. Now you get some rest. It's a big day tomorrow. She and Ryan left the sunroom. They slid the glass door shut, and then I heard the quiet metallic click of the latch, the lock. They had locked me in, just in case the confused old man decided to go for a wander before the doctor could arrive. I sat in the dark. The final trap was set. The evaluation was in less than 15 hours. I waited until I heard their footsteps go upstairs. Then I pulled out my phone. It was time to call Harrison. I sat there in the dark. The click of that lock echoed in the tiny room. It was a small metallic sound, but it felt as final as a jail cell door slamming shut. I was 70 years old, locked in a glass box in my own son's house. I looked at my cheap flip phone, the screen glowing. 3:35 a.m. I had about 6 hours until Dr. Smith arrived. 6 hours until Jenna and Ryan made their final move to have me declared incompetent. My thumb hovered over Harrison's name. I had to wait. I couldn't risk calling him again. He had his instructions. He knew what was at stake. The hours dragged. 4 a.m., 5 a.m. The sky outside the glass walls began to turn from black to a sick gray color. I didn't sleep. I just sat on the pull-out sofa, wrapped in my coat, my mind racing. What if Harrison couldn't get the information? What if the doctor came and I had nothing? It would be my word against theirs. The word of a confused old man against a concerned family and their professional friend. I would be finished. They'd have me in Golden Meadows by nightfall, and my $18 million, my father's $18 million, would be theirs by the end of the week. At exactly 6:15 a.m. the phone vibrated, a silent buzzing vibration against my leg. I snatched it up so fast I almost dropped it. The screen read, Harrison. I flipped it open, pressing my thumb to the answer key. I didn't say hello, I just whispered, "Talk to me." "Walter, thank God. I've been working all night." Harrison's voice was sharp, tired, and running on coffee. "Okay, listen close. The good news first. The very good news. The consortium bit. They bit hard. They wanted that parcel. The wire transfer cleared an hour ago. The irrevocable trust is funded, Walter. $4.5 million. It's yours. It's locked down. Legally, it's safer than gold. Even if they get a guardianship order, they cannot touch that trust. You are protected." I let out a breath I didn't even know I was holding. The relief was so strong my knees went weak. I had to sit down on the lumpy sofa. 4.5 million. I had an escape. "That's the good news," Harrison said. My stomach dropped. "And the bad news? The investigation you asked for, on Jenna Byrne." Harrison let out a long, slow sigh. "Walter, it's worse than you thought. It's much worse." "Just tell me," I said, my hand tightening on the phone. "The team I hired, they're good. They pulled her credit, her online activity, public records. You were right about the gambling. It's not just a little habit, Walter. It's a full-blown addiction. The $220,000 you overheard, that's just the tip of the iceberg." I closed my eyes. "It's not just online casinos," Harrison continued, his voice grim. "It's markers, online sports betting, high-interest payday loans. She's been taking them out against Ryan's salary. My people think she's been forging his signature on digital loan applications for months." Forging signatures. My God. "But that's not the worst part, Walter." "How?" I whispered. "How can it possibly be worse than that?" "The house," Harrison said. "The house you're sitting in right now. Ryan and Jenna, they're not just behind on the mortgage." "What do you mean?" "I mean, Jenna took out a second mortgage on the property 6 months ago for $50,000. She did it secretly. Ryan didn't co-sign. The investigators are almost certain she forged his signature on those documents, too." My mind was spinning. The house Isla and I had helped them buy. "She bet it all, Walter," Harrison said quietly. "She lost the entire $50,000 in one weekend, and she has not made a single payment on that second mortgage. Not one." "So, the foreclosure," I said. "The 30 days I heard them talking about." "That's the problem, Walter," Harrison said. "The 30 days. That was last week. The bank's grace period is over. The house, Astul, it's not going to be foreclosed. It is foreclosed. The bank already owns it. The auction, it's scheduled for this Friday. In 3 days. 3 days. I looked around the glass walls of my prison. This house, it was already gone. "Ryan," I whispered, Does he know? Does he know about the second mortgage?" "Our guy doesn't think so," Harrison said. "He knows about the gambling. He knows about the debt. But he thinks they're just late on the first mortgage. He has no idea she leveraged the entire roof over his head. He has no idea that in 72 hours the bank is going to kick them, and you, to the curb." I finally understood. Jenna's panic, her desperation, the doctor. This wasn't just a plan to get rid of me. This wasn't just a plan to get my pension. This was a last-ditch, frantic Hail Mary pass. She wasn't trying to get money. She was trying to replace the money she had stolen. She was hoping to get guardianship, find some assets, any assets, maybe the non-existent inheritance she thought I was hiding, and use it to plug the gaping, bleeding wound of their finances before Ryan found out she hadn't just bankrupted them. She had made them homeless. The doctor wasn't just her key to Golden Meadows. He was her key to survival. "Walter," Harrison said, pulling me back. "Walter, are you there?" "I'm here," I said. My voice was perfectly calm. The rage was gone. The fear was gone. All that was left was a cold, perfect, terrible clarity. "What time is it in Wyoming, Harrison?" 6:30 a.m. "Why? I need you to do one more thing. I need you to call that consortium back, the one that just bought the farm." "What, why?" "I need you to buy something for me, here, in Ohio." "Buy what?" "A house," I said, "or more specifically, a mortgage." I looked through the glass door into the dark, quiet kitchen. "I need you to find out which bank holds the note on this property," I said. "Both notes, the first and the second mortgage, and I want you to buy them. I want you to buy my son's debt, today." The doorbell rang at exactly 10 o'clock in the morning. I heard it from the living room armchair. Jenna and Ryan had moved me there an hour earlier, guiding me by the elbows as if I were a piece of antique china that might shatter. "Let's get you settled in the comfortable chair, Walter." Jenna had chirped, her voice sickeningly bright. "It's warmer out here. We have a visitor coming and we want you to be comfortable." She fluffed a pillow behind my back. Her hands smelled like expensive floral lotion. I just slumped into the chair, letting my head hang, playing the part of the frail, defeated old man. Ryan stood by the fireplace, his face pale and slick with a thin layer of sweat. He looked like a man walking to his own execution. He knew what this was. He knew it was wrong. But he was weak, a ship towed in the wake of his wife's ruthless ambition. "I'll get it," Jenna called out, clapping her hands together. I heard her greet him at the door. Her voice was thick with fake emotion. "Greg, thank you so much for coming on such short notice. We're at our wits' end. We're so worried." "Of course, Jenna. Anything to help an old friend," a man's voice replied. It was smooth, confident, professional. A moment later, Dr. Smith walked into the living room. He was exactly as I remembered from the barbecue 2 years ago. Mid-50s, perfect gray hair, an expensive suit that probably cost more than my first car. He carried a polished brown leather briefcase. He looked at me, and his practiced, friendly smile clicked into place. "And this must be Walter," he said, extending a hand. I just blinked at him, my eyes wide and watery. I didn't take his hand. I let mine tremble in my lap. His smile didn't falter. He pulled the ottoman closer and sat down, leaning in his posture, a perfect imitation of concern. Jenna sat on the edge of the sofa, wringing her hands. Ryan continued to stare at the fireplace as if hoping to find an escape route in the bricks. "Walter?" Dr. Smith began, his voice soft and soothing. "My name is Greg Smith. I'm a friend of Jenna's, and she and Ryan have told me you've been going through a very difficult time." I just nodded, a small, weak movement. "Losing your wife, Isla, that's a tremendous loss," he continued. "And then this trip, your father's funeral, and the difficult news about his estate. That's a lot for any one person to handle." I looked at Jenna. She gave me an encouraging little nod, as if to say, "It's okay. He's here to help." "Jenna tells me," the doctor went on, "that you've been, a little forgetful lately. Is that right? Sometimes feeling confused, maybe misplacing things." I could see the script laid out in front of me. He would ask me a few simple questions. "What's the date? Who is the president? Where are you?" I would answer them, and then he would twist it. He would say, "Your family says you're confused and you seem agitated. You're denying your symptoms, which is a symptom in itself." It was the perfect airtight trap. Jenna jumped in. "It's okay, Walter. Just tell the doctor. Tell him about the remote. Remember how you couldn't find the remote control and how you lost your socks? I looked at the doctor. His eyes were kind, but his smile was a lie. This was my moment. This was the moment it all turned. Hello everyone, I'm truly grateful you're here today. Before we go any further, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. And I want to ask you something. Honestly, if you were standing outside that door, hearing your family plan your future, would you walk in or stay silent? Just a quick note before we continue this story includes some fictional elements added for narrative and educational purposes. Any similarities to real names or situations are unintentional, but the message you're about to hear is completely real. I took a slow, deep breath. The performance was over. The slumped, frail old man disappeared. I sat up straight in the armchair. My spine felt like steel. I looked Dr. Greg Smith directly in his practiced lying eyes. My voice, when it came out, was not the weak whisper of a confused man. It was the voice of a 70-year-old who had run a factory floor for 40 years. It was cold, it was clear, and it did not tremble. "You can go now, doctor." The smile on Smith's face faltered. It didn't fall. It just stuck. I beg your pardon." Jenna's face tightened. The fake concern vanished. "Walter, don't be rude. This is Dr. Smith. He's here to help." "No," I said, my gaze still locked on the doctor. "He's not. He's here to sign a piece of paper. He's here to commit perjury. He's here to help you steal my pension and my Social Security." Smith's face went from pale to a blotchy red. "Now see here, Mr. Byrne. That is a very serious accusation. It's a serious crime," I said. "I know who you are, Greg. I remember you from the barbecue. You're a family psychologist, not a geriatric specialist. And I am not your patient, so I'll say it again. You can leave my house." My house?" Jenna stammered, shooting to her feet. Ryan finally turned from the fireplace, his face a mask of pure white-hot panic. "Dad, what are you doing?" "This is my house, Walter," Jenna shrieked, her voice cracking. "And you are. You're confused. This is exactly what we were talking about. You're paranoid. You're having an episode. Am I?" I turned my gaze on her. The cold anger I had held back for 8 days finally washed over me. "Am I paranoid, Jenna? Or do I just have good hearing? Am I paranoid to know that you were planning to put me in Golden Meadows?" The room just stopped. The name. I had said the name. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Jenna's mouth opened, and a little "oh" sound came out. She looked at Ryan, her eyes wide with animal panic. This wasn't in her script. Ryan looked like he was going to be sick. He stumbled forward. "Dad, you heard us." "Every word," I said, my voice like gravel. "Through the front door. He's a financial black hole. Golden Meadows. It's him or us. Every single word." Dr. Smith didn't need any more. He saw the trap he'd just walked into. He snapped his briefcase shut. I think I'm in the wrong place. This is a private family matter. I should be going." "Yes," I said. "You should." He didn't walk to the door. He fled. We heard the front door open and slam shut. And then there was just silence. It was just me, my son, and his wife. Jenna stared at me, her face white. You spied on us," she whispered. "No," I said. "I listened. And then for 8 days, I watched." You pretended," she shrieked, her rage coming back. "All week you sat there, pretending to be sick, pretending to be confused." "I didn't have to pretend very hard, did I?" I said. I stood up from the armchair. I suddenly felt stronger than I had in years. "You made it easy. The cold room. The stolen remote. The scraps of food. You locked me in last night, Jenna. Ryan's head snapped toward her. What, Jenna? You locked him in. It was for his own good, she screamed. He's clearly not well. He's senile. He's lying. He's making it all up. Am I lying, Jenna? I took a step toward her. Am I lying about Golden Meadows? She flinched. She actually took a step back. You did all this, I said, my voice quiet again. You were willing to destroy my life. You were willing to throw me in a hole to die, all because you thought I was poor, because you thought I was a burden. You are, she spat, her composure gone. You're a leech. You came here with nothing but debts. That, I said, that is where you are wrong. That, I said. My voice was suddenly calm, and the calmness of it seemed to startle her more than if I had yelled. She stopped, her mouth still open, breathing hard. That is where you are wrong, Jenna. What? What did you say? I said you're wrong, I repeated. And that's why I lied. Ryan, who had been frozen by the fireplace, finally looked at me. Lied. Dad. What lie? I looked at Jenna. I watched her pupils, already wide with anger, narrow into confused slits. My father, Hector, he didn't leave me any debts, I said. I let the words land one by one like stones dropping into a deep, dark well. He didn't leave me taxes. He didn't leave me nothing. Then, what? Ryan stammered, taking a half step forward. Then what did he leave you? I held Jenna's gaze. I didn't look away. He left me $18 million. Silence. The word just hung in the air of the messy living room. $18 million. It wasn't a sound. It was a physical object. It sucked all the air out of the room. Ryan's mouth opened a little O of disbelief. He just stared. He looked from me to Jenna and back to me as if he was sure he'd misheard, as if his senile old father had finally completely lost his mind. Jenna's face. It was a painting of disbelief. The rage just froze. It solidified on her features, her face a white, contorted mask. What? What did you just say? She whispered. The word was hollow. 18 million. I repeated, my voice flat. I was tired of playing a part. I was just tired. 3 farms in Wyoming with active natural gas leases, and a house on the ocean in Maine. The lawyer's estimate is 18 million. Jenna's hand, which had been clenched into a fist, slowly uncurled. She looked at her own hand, then back at me. She wasn't processing it. I could see the gears in her head turning, trying to make the two realities fit. The leech in the sunroom. The 18 million. They didn't go together. It was a system error. You're lying, she said. It wasn't an accusation. It was a plea. You're confused. You read it wrong. You're senile. I'm not confused, Jenna, I said. I'm not senile, and I'm not lying. And then it happened. The mask of rage and disbelief didn't just fade. It shattered. It was like a dam breaking. A sound tore out of her throat. It wasn't a word. It was a high-pitched, strangled scream of joy. Ha! 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 Her face, which had been paper white, flooded with a blotchy red color. 18 million, she shrieked the number, and it was a sound of pure, unadulterated, terrifying victory. Ryan! She screamed, spinning so fast she almost fell. She grabbed her husband's arms. Ryan, did you hear him? Did you hear him? 18 million, 18. Jenna, don't. Ryan stammered, his face still numb with shock. He couldn't keep up with her emotional whiplash. Oh, Dad! Jenna flew at me. Before I could so much as raise my hands, Her arms were locked around my neck in a hug so tight, it was suffocating. I could smell the floral lotion from her hands, the hairspray from her perfect ponytail. "You were joking!" she cried, her voice muffled in the shoulder of my old worn-out coat. "Oh, you were just joking. You terrible, wonderful, terrible old man, a joke. That's what it was. The debts, the taxes. You were playing a joke on us." She pulled back, her hands gripping my shoulders. Her face was a terrifying picture of happiness. Tears streamed down her cheeks, washing away her mascara. But her eyes were dancing. They were bright, hard, and calculating. "We're rich, Ryan, we're rich," she yelled, looking back at him over her shoulder. Then she turned back to me, her smile so wide it looked painful. Her grip on my arms was bruising. "Oh, Dad, we're so sorry. You must have been so upset thinking we believed you. We were just playing along with your little joke, weren't we? Ryan, we knew you were kidding." Ryan just blinked, his face completely pale. He looked sick. "You don't have to go anywhere," Jenna said, her voice dropping back into that syrupy, cooing, spider-to-the-fly tone. Golden Meadows. What a silly, horrible idea. Why would you ever go there? We'll take care of you. We'll take care of everything. Right here we can. We can build an addition, a whole new wing on the house. We can knock out the kitchen wall. We'll build you your own apartment with its own kitchen and a new heater, a state-of-the-art heater. Whatever you want, Dad. Whatever your heart desires." She pulled me into another crushing hug. I just stood there, a 70-year-old man, in a cold house being held by a woman who 5 minutes ago had called me a leech. Her arms were locked around me. It wasn't a hug of love. It wasn't even a hug of relief. It was a hug of possession. It was the hug of a parasite that had just attached itself to a new, healthy, and very, very rich host. I looked over her shoulder at my son. He was watching his wife, and he wasn't celebrating. He was watching her, and he looked horrified. He was seeing her, maybe just maybe, for the very first time. He was seeing the same monster I was. I let her hug me. I let her dig her fingers into the shoulders of my old coat. I let her shriek with that terrifying giddy joy right next to my ear. "An apartment for you, Dad. A new car. We'll go on a cruise, whatever you want." My hands, which had been hanging limp at my sides, came up. I didn't push her. Not hard. I just placed my palms flat on her shoulders and unclamped her arms from my neck. I created space. I pushed her back just enough to see her face. Her laughter died in her throat. Her manic, tear-stained smile froze. The joy in her eyes flickered, instantly replaced by a sharp animal confusion. "Dad, what's wrong?" she stammered. I'm just happy. We're happy you were just joking. Happy," I repeated. The word tasted like poison. "Is that what this is, Jenna, happiness?" I looked at her, and for the first time she saw the real me. Not the senile old man. Not the burden. Not the ghost. She saw the 70-year-old man who had seen through her. "Or is it just relief?" I asked. What are you talking about? $18 million, I said, my voice quiet, cutting right through her excitement. "It's a lot of money. It's a miracle, isn't it? But I have to ask." I paused just for a second, letting her panic build. "Is it enough?" "Enough?" she repeated, her voice suddenly small. "Enough for what? It's 18 million. Is it enough?" I said, "to pay off the $220,000. The words just hung there. If 18 million had sucked the air out of the room, 220,000 brought the frost. Jenna's face didn't just go pale. It went white. A waxy, bloodless, terrible white. She looked like a store mannequin. Ryan made a sound. a small, gulping, choking sound like he'd been punched. His eyes, which had been locked on his wife with a look of dawning horror, flew to me. "Dad," he whispered. His voice was shaking. "What? What did you just say? 200? What?" I didn't look at my son, not yet. I kept my eyes locked on Jenna. "You heard me," I said. $220,000. That's a lot of online sports betting, Jenna. That's a lot of digital poker tables. Must be hard keeping that a secret." I, Jenna stammered. She took a step back, her hand flying to her mouth. She looked at Ryan, her eyes wide with a terror that had nothing to do with me. He's lying. He's confused. He's senile. He's making it all up. Ryan, he's just saying numbers." "Am I?" I asked. "Am I making up the online loan applications? The ones you forged his signature on? Am I making up the payday loans? The markers? Am I making up the collection agency that's been calling his office?" "Jenna," Ryan said. His voice wasn't a whisper anymore. It was low. It was deep. It was dangerous. "Jenna, what is he talking about?" "He's lying!" she shrieked, backing away from me toward the kitchen. "He's an old bitter man, and he's trying to turn you against me. He's talking about the foreclosure, isn't he, Jenna?" I said. That was the word. That was the kill shot. Ryan just crumbled. "Foreclosure," he repeated. He stumbled forward away from the fireplace, his gaze unfocused. No, we're just late. That's what you said. You said we were 30 days late, that we could catch up. You said you just needed—" "She lied, son," I said. My voice was gentle now. I finally turned to him. His face was breaking apart. "She didn't just get behind. She took out a second mortgage, 6 months ago, for $50,000. She forged your name, Ryan, and she lost it all, in one weekend." "No," Ryan whispered, shaking his head. "The auction is this Friday, son," I said. "In 3 days, this house is gone. That's what the 30 days meant. That's why she was so desperate to get me declared incompetent. She wasn't just after my pension. She was hoping I had something, anything, to plug the hole before you found out she hadn't just bankrupted you." I paused. "She had made you homeless." Ryan sank to his knees. He didn't yell. He didn't make a sound. He just dropped. He put his hands on his head, his fingers digging into his hair, and he just knelt on the cheap living room carpet, his body rocking back and forth. "No," he whispered to the floor. No. Jenna, you didn't. You promised. You promised me you stopped. You promised. My mother's. The kids' college fund." Jenna was backed against the kitchen counter, her eyes darting between me and the broken man on the floor. The trap was closed. She was caught. And then she exploded. The panic, the lies, the terror, it all erupted into pure, white-hot rage. "So what?" she screamed, her voice cracking. "So what if I did? You didn't give me a choice, you and your useless father living here sucking us dry. I had to do something. I could have won it back. I was so close, I just needed more time." "My God," Ryan whispered, looking up at the woman he'd married. "It's his fault," she shrieked, and she pointed at me. Her finger was shaking. "He did this. He came back with his debts, his lies, and he ruined everything." She was a cornered animal, spitting and clawing at the men who had trapped her. Ryan just stayed on the floor. He had finally seen it. The truth. The truth that I was the only one in the room who hadn't been lying to him. The truth that his wife hadn't just made a mistake. She had destroyed them. The fight drained out of her. The realization of what she had lost, of what she had almost had in her grasp, hit her. $18 million. She slid down the wall, her legs giving out, and she just sat on the floor, surrounded by her fake, perfect, foreclosed life. She put her head in her hands and began to cry. Not the angry sobs, not the hysterical shrieks. This was the quiet, hopeless sound of absolute final defeat. Ryan just stood there, his bloody hand at his side, staring at the woman on the floor. The war was over, and everyone had lost. I let the silence sit for a full minute. I let them sit in the ruins they had made. Then I cleared my throat. They both flinched. I think they had forgotten I was still there. "Well," I said, "now that we're all being honest." Jenna looked up, her face a mess of ruined makeup and tears. What do you want?" she whispered. "What I want," I said, "is to go to a home where I'm not freezing to death. What I want is to not be called a leech by the woman who has been gambling away my son's future. What I want is to know why my son, would agree to throw his own father into a state-run home." Ryan finally moved. He turned to me, and his face was just hollow. "Dad," he whispered, she told me we had no choice. She told me if we didn't cut our expenses, starting with you, we'd lose everything. I didn't know why we were losing everything. I didn't know about the second mortgage, I swear. You just thought it was easier to get rid of me." I finished for him. He didn't answer. He just looked at the floor. And that was all the answer I needed. "Well," I said, "I have good news, Jenna." She looked up, her eyes wide with a tiny pathetic spark of hope. Good news. "Yes, you're right. You were absolutely right. I am a burden." "Dad, no," Ryan whispered. "Yes," I said. "I am. A 70-year-old man, a widower living in your sunroom. I'm a problem. And you too. You have so many problems right now. The foreclosure, the gambling, the complete destruction of your marriage. The last thing you need is a senile old man hanging around." Jenna just stared, confused. What are you saying?" "I'm saying you're right," I said. "It's time for me to go. I'm going to get out of your hair. I'm going to solve my own problem." I walked over to Ryan. He was still standing by the fireplace, a statue of shame. "Ryan," I said. He flinched, but he looked at me. "I came back from that funeral," I said, my voice quiet, "and I was going to give you this house. I was going to pay off every single debt you had no questions asked. I was going to set you free. All I wanted was to feel like I was part of a family again." His face crumpled. "Oh God, Dad, But you couldn't even wait," I said. "You couldn't even pretend to be human. You were too busy planning my exile." "Walter," Jenna said, scrambling to her feet. Wait. We can fix this. The 18 million, it fixes everything. It pays off the house. It pays off everything. We can be a family again, just like you wanted." She was smiling again. That bright, terrifying, greedy smile. She didn't see the problem. She just saw the money. She saw that the ATM had been restocked. "That's the thing, Jenna," I said. "It's not we." I reached into my pocket. My hand passed the thick envelope with the will. I pulled out my old flip phone. I held it up. "It's my money." I saw Ryan's eyes focus on the phone. "Dad, what does that mean?" "It means," I said, "that I've been a busy old man. I made a phone call. I made a few. That farm, the one worth $4.5 million, I already sold it." You sold it," Jenna said, her voice faint. "Yes, a consortium in Wyoming bought it. This morning. The money is gone." "Gone?" she shrieked. "What do you mean, gone?" Did you gamble it? The irony of the question was so thick I could barely breathe. No, Jenna, I said. I'm not like you. I didn't lose it. I moved it. I moved it into an irrevocable trust, a trust that only I can touch, a trust that no son, no daughter-in-law, and no court-appointed guardian can ever get their hands on. Her face went blank. The smile, the hope, the greed. It all just switched off. So you see, I said, I'm all taken care of. I started walking toward the front door. Wait, Ryan yelled, running after me. Dad, wait, where are you going? You can't just leave. I turned at the door, my hand on the knob. I can, I said. You were right. I'm a burden, and I'm done being your burden. But the house, he said, his voice cracking with desperation. The foreclosure. In 3 days, Dad, please you. You have the money. You can stop it. You can save us. Jenna was right behind him, her face a mask of pleading. He's right, Walter. Please, we made a mistake, a horrible mistake, but you can fix it. You're the only one who can. I looked at them. My son, the coward. My daughter-in-law, the predator. Both of them finally united, begging me for money. I just smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was Hector's smile. Hard. Cold. Oh, I said. The house, I almost forgot. Dad, you don't have to worry about the foreclosure, son. It's all taken care of. A wave of pure, flooding relief washed over Ryan's face. He actually sagged against the doorframe. Oh God, Dad, thank you. I knew you wouldn't. Don't thank me, I said, cutting him off. I didn't do it for you. What? What do you mean? I pulled a new envelope out of my coat pocket. The one Harrison had overnighted to me at a P.O. box I'd set up. I said that the bank isn't going to foreclose on this house. Jenna let out a sob of relief. Thank you, Walter, thank you. The bank isn't foreclosing, I said, because the bank doesn't own this house anymore. I looked them both right in the eye. As of 9 a.m. this morning, my trust bought the debt. Both mortgages. The first one and the secret fraudulent one you signed, Jenna. I let that sink in. I don't understand, Ryan said. It means, I said that I paid it all off. This house is free and clear. Jenna burst into tears, lunging for me again. You saved us. You saved us, Walter. I knew you would. I put my hand up, a firm, flat palm. She stopped. I'm not finished, I said. I own the debt. I own the note. And now I own this house. I tossed the envelope onto the floor between them. It landed with a soft, final thump. That, I said, is a 30-day eviction notice. Dr. Smith was gone. I heard the front door click shut, a quiet little sound that was completely drowned out by Jenna's ragged, shrieking sobs. She was still backed against the counter, a wild animal, her face blotchy and wet, with tears of pure, unadulterated rage. And Ryan, my son. He was still on his knees in the middle of the living room floor, like a man who had just been told his entire life was a lie. Which I supposed it was. He was just rocking back and forth, whispering, "No, no, no," to the carpet. They were a storm, a hurricane of their own, making a whirlwind of debt and lies and betrayal. And I was the eye. I stood up from the armchair. The movement was small, but it was enough. The sound of my old joints creaking, or maybe just the shift in the room's gravity, made them both stop. Jenna's sobs hitched. Ryan's rocking paused. They both looked at me, their eyes red and ruined. You know, I said. My voice was calm. It was so calm it surprised even me. The funny thing is, the really truly funny part. I walked slowly from the armchair, stepping around my son, who was still kneeling on the floor. I walked toward the front window and looked out at the overgrown lawn. The funny part is, I came home from that funeral, and I was happy. Happy. Ryan's voice was a rough croak from the floor. Yes. Happy, I said, still looking out the window. Because I thought I had the answer. I thought I had a miracle in my pocket. I knew you were struggling. I didn't know why not, really. I didn't know about this. I gestured vaguely around the room. But I knew you were in pain, and I thought I could fix it. I turned around to face them. The whole 10-hour drive back from Wyoming, you know what I was planning. I was planning to sit you both down right at that kitchen table. I was going to tell you about the money, and then I was going to tell you that I was giving you this house. Jenna's head snapped up. Her crying stopped. What, this house, I said. I was going to pay off the mortgage, whatever it was. I was going to sign the deed over to you and Ryan. A gift, no strings, all of it, and any other debts you had, the credit cards, the car payment. I was going to wipe it all clean. I was going to set you free. Jenna was getting to her feet. Her face was a mess of tear tracks and dawning desperate calculation. I didn't want the 18 million, I said. I just wanted a family. I just wanted a place to be. I thought I could buy my son back. I thought I could buy my way out of that cold sunroom. But you still can't. Jenna stammered. She stumbled forward, her hands outstretched. She was moving toward me, but her eyes were fixed on something I couldn't see. On the money. Beau, Dad, Walter, that's what we want. That's all we ever wanted, you. You can still do that. It's not too late. Ryan was looking at her, his expression unreadable. Jenna, stop. No! She shrieked, ignoring him and lunging at me. She didn't hug me this time. She grabbed the front of my old coat. Her knuckles were white. Walter, please listen to me, you were right. We made a mistake, a horrible, terrible mistake. I was sick, you understand. The gambling, it's a disease, I was sick. But you can fix it. You have the money, you can fix everything. You can pay off the house, you can save us. Please, Dad, please, we'll do anything. We'll build you the apartment. We'll wait on you hand and foot. We'll be the family you want. Just please. Don't let them take the house. She was on her knees now, clinging to my coat, sobbing. It was the most pathetic, most disgusting performance I had ever seen. 5 minutes ago, I was a leech. 10 minutes ago, I was a senile old man. Now I was her savior. I looked down at her, at this desperate, broken woman clinging to my clothes. And then I looked at my son. He was finally standing up. He was just watching us. His face was empty. He had nothing left. Please, Walter. Jenna wept. Don't let the bank take the house. Don't let them win. I reached down and I took her wrists. I unclenched her fingers from my coat one by one. You're right, Jenna, I said. Her sobbing stopped. She looked up, her eyes wide with a final desperate spark of hope. I am, yes, I said, dropping her hands. You're right. The bank isn't going to take this house. Ryan let out a sound, a rush of air, relief. Oh God, Dad, I knew you. Don't thank me, Ryan, I said, cutting him off without looking at him. My eyes were still on Jenna. I didn't do it for you. I don't understand, Jenna whispered. The foreclosure, the auction on Friday. You don't have to worry about it, I said. It's all been taken care of. You paid it? Ryan asked, his voice trembling. You already paid it off. Yes, I said. I paid it all off, in full, this morning. The bank isn't foreclosing. Jenna let out a wild laugh of pure relief. Oh, thank you, God, thank you, Walter, The bank isn't foreclosing, I said, my voice cutting through her like a razor, because the bank doesn't own your debt anymore. Jenna's smile froze. What does that mean? Ryan asked. It means, I said, that I had my lawyer in Wyoming contact the bank. I had him find out exactly who held the note on this property. Both notes. The original one, and the secret fraudulent one you took out, Jenna. Jenna's face went white again. And then, I said, I had my lawyer buy that debt. All of it. The bank was happy to sell. They got their money. They're out of the picture. You bought it, Ryan whispered. So you own? Yes, I said. I own this house. I am your mortgage holder. I am your creditor. I am the man you owe $220,000 to. I reached into the inner pocket of my coat, the one where I'd kept my father's will. I pulled out a new crisp white envelope. I own the roof over your head, I said, and as the new owner, I have a few changes I'd like to make. I tossed the envelope onto the coffee table, the one where she'd left the Golden Meadows brochure. It landed with a soft, final thump. Jenna just stared at it. What is that? She whispered. That, I said, is a 30-day eviction notice. The white envelope landed on the coffee table with a soft, final sound. Jenna just stared at it. She didn't move. She didn't seem to be breathing. Eviction. Notice. Ryan whispered the words. He sounded like a stranger, like a man speaking a language he didn't understand. Dad, no, that's not funny. That's not a joke. It's not a joke, son, I said, my voice as flat and hard as a piece of slate. It's a legal document. My trust now holds the deed to this property free and clear. You are tenants, and you are in default. You haven't paid your mortgage, to me, so you have to leave. I'm giving you 30 days, which, as I understand, it is 27 more days than the bank was going to give you. I'd say that's generous. Jenna finally moved. She didn't get up. She just looked from the envelope to my face. The confusion was gone. The hope was gone. The rage was gone. All that was left was a pure blank nothing. You're kicking us out, she whispered. I am removing non-paying tenants from my property, I said. It's just business. Business. Ryan suddenly found his voice. It wasn't a whisper. It was a roar. He lunged forward, not at me, but at her. He grabbed her by the arm, hauling her to her feet. Business, this is our life, and you did this. Ryan, stop, you're hurting me, she shrieked, trying to pull away. You lied to me, he shouted, his face inches from hers. You lied. You lied about the money. You lied about the house. You lied about everything. My father came home with $18 million, and you tried to have him locked up. You called him a leech. I didn't know, she screamed, clawing at his hands. How could I know? I thought he was poor. I thought he was dragging us down. He wasn't dragging us down, Ryan yelled, shaking her. You with your gambling. You gambled away my mother's money. You gambled away our house. I did it for us, she cried. To give us a better life, a life you couldn't give me. It was ugly. It was the raw, terrible truth of their marriage exploding in the middle of the living room right in front of me. The man who had paid for the stage they were performing on. I just stood by the front door and watched. A better life. Ryan laughed, that same dead, hollow laugh from the other night. This is a better life, Jenna. We're being evicted. We have nothing. We have less than nothing. No! She screamed, finally tearing herself free from him. Her eyes, wild and panicked, found me again. She stumbled, fell to her knees, and crawled. She literally crawled across the carpet and grabbed the hem of my pants. Walter, she wept. Please, please don't. I'm begging you. Don't do this. He's right. I lied. I did it all. It was me. Punish me. Don't punish Ryan. Don't take his home. It was a good performance. A brilliant one, even. The self-sacrificing wife. The repentant addict. But I'd seen the real her. The one who had locked me in the sunroom. Punish you, I said, looking down at her. Jenna, I'm not punishing you. I'm just done. I pulled my pant leg free from her grasp. I came back from my father's funeral, I said, speaking to the room, to both of them. I came back here, and my heart was full. I was grieving my wife, but I was hopeful. I was hopeful because I thought I had the answer. I had $18 million, and I was going to give it all to you. Ryan just stared at me, his face wet with tears. I was going to pay off this house, I said. I was going to pay off your credit cards. I was going to pay off every single penny you owed Jenna, no questions asked. I was going to wipe the slate clean, and then I was going to buy myself a small apartment and leave you two in peace. I looked at Ryan. All I wanted, son, was a family. I just wanted to be invited over for dinner on Sundays. I wanted to not be a burden. Dad, Ryan whispered. I'm so sorry. You didn't what? I said. You didn't know, or you didn't care. You stood right there in that kitchen, and you listened to your wife plan my eviction. You heard her call me a leech, and you let her. You were going to sign the papers, Ryan. You were going to put your father, the man who raised you, into a state-run home. For money. For a house you were losing anyway. He had no words. Because there were no words. You made your choice, I said. Both of you. When you thought I was poor and useless, you decided I was disposable. Jenna was back on her feet, the tears gone, her face hard again. So, this is it. Revenge, you get rich, and you throw your own family out onto the street. That's your big, noble plan. No, I said. This isn't revenge, this is just consequences. You don't get to treat people like trash and then ask them for help. You don't get to lock a man in a cold room and then beg him to pay your bills. I turned my back on them. I put my hand on the doorknob. You see, Jenna, I said, looking over my shoulder. You were right about one thing. You and I, we are alike. You're a gambler, and so am I. You gambled your house, you gambled your marriage, you gambled my son's future, and you lost. And you, Ryan asked, his voice shaking. I gambled too, I said. 8 days ago, I gambled that my son deep down was still a good man. I gambled that if I was just pathetic enough, he would finally stand up and do the right thing. I looked at him, and my heart finally truly broke. I lost too. I opened the front door. The cool, fresh morning air hit my face. It felt like the first real breath I'd taken in 8 months. Wait, Jenna shrieked. Where are we supposed to go? What are we supposed to do? I stopped in the doorway. I looked at the two of them, a ruined man and a venomous woman standing in the middle of a house that was no longer theirs. Honestly, Jenna, I said, I don't care. I walked out the front door. I didn't slam it. I just closed it gently behind me. I heard the lock click. I walked down the cracked concrete path past Isla's overgrown roses. I got into my old truck, the one with the $18 million will still tucked in the glove box. I started the engine, and I drove away. As I turned the corner, I saw Ryan, my son, stumble out onto the front lawn. He was just standing there watching me leave. I didn't stop. I just kept driving. I looked at them. My son, the coward. My daughter-in-law, the predator. Both of them finally united, begging me for money. I just smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was Hector's smile. Hard. Cold. "Oh," I said. "The house, I almost forgot about that." "Dad," Ryan whispered. His face streaked with tears, his eyes lighting up with a desperate, pathetic hope. "You don't have to worry about the foreclosure, son," I said. "You don't have to worry about the bank. It's all taken care of." A wave of pure, flooding relief washed over Ryan's face. He actually sagged against the wall, his legs giving out. "Oh God, Dad, thank you. Thank you. I knew you wouldn't, Jenna let out a wild, high-pitched sob, but this time it was a sound of absolute relief. She scrambled to her feet, laughing and crying at the same time. "Oh, Walter, Bo, thank you. I knew you still loved us. I knew you would fix it." "Don't thank me," I said. My voice was quiet, and it sliced right through her relieved sobs. She stopped. "I didn't do it for you." Jenna's smile froze. What do you mean?" I said that the bank isn't going to foreclose on this house." I paused just to let them hang on that one good piece of news. "The bank isn't foreclosing, because the bank doesn't own your debt anymore." Ryan frowned. I don't understand." "It's simple, son," I said. "I had my lawyer in Wyoming contact the bank this morning, the one that holds your first mortgage, and the other bank, Jenna, the one that holds the secret fraudulent $50,000 note you took out." Jenna's face went white again. "And then," I said, "I had my lawyer buy that debt, all of it. The bank was happy to sell. They got their money. They're out of the picture. As of 9 a.m. this morning, my $4.5 million trust, my irrevocable, untouchable trust, bought every penny you owe." I let that sink in. Jenna was the first to process it. A slow, watery, greedy smile spread across her face. Oh, Walter," she breathed. She thought it was a gift. She thought she was safe. She thought the ATM had just paid the bill. She thought, "He's still a fool." You paid it off." Ryan whispered, his eyes wide with a hope that almost broke my heart. "Yes," I said. "I paid it all off. This house is free and clear." Jenna burst into fresh tears, lunging forward to hug me. You saved us, Walter. I knew you would, I knew." I put my hand up, a firm, flat palm in the air between us. She stopped, her arms outstretched, her face a mask of confusion. "I'm not finished," I said. I looked at Jenna. "You're right. I paid the debt. But you didn't. You still owe every cent. The bank just doesn't hold the note anymore." I looked at both of them, my son and his wife, standing in the living room they thought they had just saved. "I do." The confusion on their faces was absolute. "I am your mortgage holder," I said. "I am your creditor. I am the man you owe $220,000 to, plus the rest of the original mortgage. I own this house. You are just living in it." "Dad," Ryan said, shaking his head, I don't... What does that mean?" I reached into the inner pocket of my coat, the one where I'd kept my father's will. I pulled out a new crisp white envelope, the one Harrison had overnighted to a post office box I'd set up 2 days ago. "It means, Ryan," I said, "that as the new legal owner of this property, I have a few changes I'd like to make." I tossed the envelope onto the coffee table, the one where she'd left the Golden Meadows brochure. It landed with a soft, final thump. Jenna just stared at it. She knew what it was before she even read it. "What? What is that?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "That," I said, "is a 30-day eviction notice. I am terminating your tenancy. You have 30 days to get your things and get out of my house." I didn't wait for them to scream. I didn't wait for them to beg again. I just turned around. I heard Jenna shriek my name, a sound of pure animal rage. I heard Ryan yell, "Dad, wait, you can't." I just walked out the front door. I pulled it shut gently behind me. I heard the lock click. I walked down the cracked concrete path past Isla's overgrown roses. I got into my old truck, the one with the $18 million wheel still tucked in the glove box. I started the engine, and I drove away. As I turned the corner, I saw Ryan stumble out onto the front lawn. He was just standing there, a silhouette of a man watching his father drive away. I didn't stop, I just kept driving. I drove east. I didn't know where I was going. I just pointed the truck toward the rising sun, and I didn't look back. I drove for 2 days. I slept in a cheap motel in Pennsylvania, the kind with thin walls and a plastic ice bucket. I paid in cash. I sat on the strange, stiff bed, and I ate a bag of peanuts for dinner. I had $4.5 million locked in a trust, and I had never felt more alone in my entire life. But I wasn't a victim. I wasn't a ghost. I was just done. I kept driving east, following a pull I didn't understand. I drove until the air changed, until it stopped smelling like damp Ohio soil and started to smell like sharp pine and cold, clean salt. I drove to Maine. I found the address on the deed, the one I'd only seen on paper. 14 Lighthouse Road. It wasn't a mansion. It was a small, gray-shingled house perched on a cliff overlooking the Atlantic. It was strong-weathered, and it looked like it belonged there. It looked like Hector. I unlocked the door with the key Harrison had overnighted to the post office box I'd set up. The air inside was still and cold, but it was a clean cold. It smelled of old wood and the sea. There was a bed, a solid table, and one good chair facing the ocean. It was more than the sunroom. It was mine. I slept for 12 hours. When I woke up, I made coffee and sat on the small wind-blasted porch watching the lobster boats pull their traps. My life as Walter Byrne, the burden was over. The next day, I called Harrison. "Walter," he said, his voice relieved. "We were wondering where you'd gone. The Ohio house, it's done. The 30 days were up. They moved out last week. We have the keys. The house is empty." "Good," I said, watching a gull hang motionless on the wind. "Sell it. Put it on the market." "And the rest of it?" he asked. "The other 2 farms in Wyoming, the ones with the gas leases." "Sell them," I said. "Sell everything. Liquidate it all. Except this house in Maine. I'm keeping this house." Harrison was quiet for a moment. "Walter, that's the bulk of the estate. That's over $14 million conservatively." "I know," I said. "I know exactly what it is, and I know what I want to do with it." "What's that?" "I want to start something," I said. "I want to build something. I want to call it the Isla and Hector Byrne Trust." I explained my idea to him. A foundation, a non-profit. It wouldn't be a charity that just handed out checks. It would be a legal weapon. A fund dedicated to one thing, providing immediate aggressive legal aid and emergency housing for the elderly. For people who were being financially abused, neglected, or exploited by their own families. For every man like me freezing in a sunroom. For every woman being told she's forgetful, while her children drain her bank account. For the ghosts in the house, the ones who are told they're a burden just waiting for a crooked doctor to sign a paper. We would be their lawyers. We would be their shield. We would fight the Dr. Smiths of the world. We would stop the guardianships before they happened. We would use Hector's money to protect the vulnerable. Harrison was silent on the other end of the line. When he finally spoke, his voice was thick with an emotion I hadn't heard from him before. My God, Walter. Hector. He would be so unbelievably proud of that. I think so, I said, looking out at the endless gray water. I think he finally is. I sat on that porch for a long time after the call. I finally understood my father. All my life I'd seen him as a hard, cold man who worked in the mines and kept to himself, a man who disapproved of me for being soft for leaving Wyoming. But I knew another story. A secret I'd learned from another Taunton months ago, a man named Alfred Thorne. Alfred had been a passenger in my rideshare car back when I was still driving for pennies to survive. He had cried when he saw my face because I looked just like my father. He told me that 60 years ago my father, Hector, a simple mechanic with no money, had found him in a bar, a young man about to lose his family business. And my father, my cold, hard father, had given that stranger his entire life savings. $30,000, an impossible sum. He'd saved Alfred's life and in doing so had secured the shares in Alfred's company, another inheritance I never knew I had. My father didn't do it for a reward. He didn't do it for praise. He just did it. He saw someone vulnerable and he protected them. He had been quietly building his own fortune from the mines, but he lived like a pauper and he used his strength not to bully but to shield. That was his real legacy, not the 18 million, the example. My son and his wife, they saw the money as a jackpot, a prize to be taken stolen and spent. My father saw his money as a tool, as a responsibility. Sitting there in his house breathing his air, I finally understood the man I had never known, and I knew exactly what I had to do with his gift. The foundation took 6 months to build. It was hard work. It was good work. Harrison moved to Maine to run it. He said he was tired of Wyoming wind and wanted to try the lobster. We've already helped 12 people. We've stopped 3 guardianships in court. We've moved 4 seniors out of abusive homes and into safe, clean apartments. We've become the people who answer the 3 a.m. call. My life is quiet now. It is good. The house in Ohio sold in a day. I never asked where Ryan and Jenna went. I didn't need to. My old flip phone rang yesterday. I almost didn't answer it. I didn't recognize the Ohio number. Hello? Dad? The voice was thin. I almost didn't recognize it. It was Ryan. Hello, son, I said. We just sat in that silence for a long, long time. I could hear the seabirds crying on my end. I could hear the sound of traffic and construction on his. I'm in a new place, he said finally. His voice was rough. A small apartment, over on the west side. It's not much, but it's clean. Okay, I said. And I got a job at a construction site. Just labor. But it's work. It's honest. That's good, Ryan. Yeah, he said. And Jenna, she's in a program, a 90-day residential program for the gambling. That's good too. Yeah, he whispered. Yeah, I guess. We're separated. For good. I'm sorry to hear that, son. Don't be, he said. It had to happen. I'm going to meetings myself. For codependence, you know. That's a good path, Ryan. Another long, aching silence. I knew what was coming. The old me would have tensed waiting for the ask, the request for money. Dad, he said, and his voice cracked. I know I have no right. I know that. I'm not calling for money. I swear, I'm not. I'm paying my own rent. I know, I said. It's just Thanksgiving is next month. And I, I don't, I mean, he took a shaky breath. I was just wondering, he finally whispered, if, if I could, maybe, come visit. Just for the day, I'll drive myself. I'll pay for my own gas. I just, I don't want to be alone, Dad. I looked out the window. I watched the ocean, that big, gray, endless water. I thought about my father. I thought about Isla. I thought about the family I had and the one I'd lost. Healing. It's not a straight line. It's a long, hard road. And it has to start with the truth. He had told the truth. He was working. She was in rehab. He was getting help. He wasn't asking for money. It was a start. Bring a pumpkin pie, son, I said. Dad, really? He whispered. He sounded like he was crying. And don't get the cheap store-bought kind, I said, my voice rough. Your mother hated those. I heard a sound on the other end. It might have been a laugh. It might have been a sob. Okay, Dad, he whispered. Okay, I will. I hung up the phone. I sat there feeling the cool salt air on my face. The road back, it's a long one. For both of us. But I guess it has to start somewhere. My story. It could have ended in that cold sunroom. I could have been just another file in a cabinet at Golden Meadows. Another confused old man whose family bled him dry and moved on. I learned something the hard way, sitting in that freezing dark. Sometimes the people closest to you, the ones who call you Dad, are the ones who will hurt you the most. They see your grief as weakness. They see your age as confusion. And they see your life savings as their inheritance. Looking back now, I see my own mistakes clearly. I stayed silent too long. I made excuses for cruelty because it came from family. Don't be like me. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Age, grief, or kindness should never make you disposable. I learned that trusting blindly can be dangerous, but trusting God gave me clarity when fear tried to take over. This story taught me that God doesn't always rescue us by changing people. Sometimes God rescues us by opening our eyes. My advice is simple: protect yourself, set boundaries early, and never trade your dignity for peace. God gives us wisdom, but we must choose to use it. If this story made you think, I invite you to comment below what lesson did you take from it, and what would you do differently in my place. If you found value here, please consider sharing this story and subscribing to the channel. It helps more than you know. Thank you sincerely for staying with me until the very end. And please be aware, the next story contains some fictional elements created for educational purposes. If this isn't for you, feel free to exit and choose content better suited to your interests.